Thanks to Crafted Elements, today we are going to take this and make something epic like this. Let's get started. Hi everybody, I'm Jim Deerdorf and this is Detroit DIY. Now that all my material is planed, and it's planed to the exact same thickness, I am going to joint the edges off because the edges are still rough sawn, so we can't glue two pieces together. I do not have a jointer, so I will be using this dovetail sled in my table saw. I made this a few years ago. I will put a link at the end of this video to watch the making of this dovetail sled. What I have here is a couple of dovetail clamps. These are from Microjig. They're very nice and they're excellent for doing stuff like this when you don't have the tools that I can't say that you have to have, because you don't have to have them. So will I ever own a jointer? No. Not when I know I can do it like this and get excellent results. I have a little bit of messed up material right here on the edge, so I'm not just going to trim this one off a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and take that whole section off and just try to get it as straight as I can. I don't want to get it in here all crooked. Not that it would really matter, because once I do the other side, the board would be square basically. So I just want to go ahead and take that little bit right off, make sure we're there. And then we'll just tighten these down. Go over to the table saw and cut that off. I do have a runner on the bottom of this that goes into the miter slot, so it makes it really nice and easy. Let's joint this one edge of this board. It's just that easy. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these jointed, and then we will figure out our layout, cut our strips, and get this thing glued up. With all of our material jointed, we are ready to cut some strips for this one. And this one in particular, I want this cherry to be the star of the show. So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to go with a wider piece of walnut down the middle, two thinner strips of maple, and then the remainder of it is going to be this cherry. I think that is going to look awesome. So I've got some pieces here from leftover, so I'm going to take one of these and make the this one right here and make that center strip out of. And then the maple, I'm just going to do two thin 1/2 inch strips. And this is probably going to be, I don't know, maybe 1 3/4 inches, something like that for this one. And that'll be a nice centerpiece down this cutting board, or this serving tray. So let me get this cut to 1 3/4 inches, and then we'll get on with the rest of it. I went ahead and cut my maple strips while I was over there. So we've got our walnut and our maple. Now we just need to get our cherry, and I am just going to kind of eyeball it to center here. I'll make sure it's all exactly where it's supposed to be before we cut it. But for now, I just need 3/8 of an inch or so extra material here. So 2 4-inch pieces of cherry is going to do me just fine. I believe I can, oh yeah, I can get that here. There's a little bit of a blonde area right here in the cherry, which I don't mind, but I don't really want it in this piece. So it's going to work out fine. I'm just going to have about, I don't know, that much of this cherry left. So we'll be good there. I'm going to go ahead and get these cut. With my cherry pieces cut, that's what we have right there. Before I glue this up though, I am going to run it through the planer just to clean off any of the saw marks, any of that on the edges of these pieces of wood. So I'll just get a much better fit. It's not horrible right now, but it's not perfect. So I'd like to just run it through the planer and clean them up. It'll only be removing, you know, probably a 1/16 total of material by the time I get done. So I'll run all of these through the planer and just get everything lined up and looking really good. With everything jointed, we are ready to glue this guy up right here. This I think is going to be one of my favorites that I've done. I'm really liking how this one is looking. We're going to be using Titebond 3 Ultimate Wood Glue. It's waterproof. Very important you use a waterproof glue on cutting board, serving board projects that are going to get cleaned up. Just a fair amount of glue, no, you know, not super excessive. It's a good little coating right there. We'll have plenty of squeeze out. Get that one set in place. We'll head over to our walnut. Same thing. Alright. Also, as you can see, I've got tape on my clamps right here, and that is just for glue control. So glue does not get, the squeeze out doesn't get all over my clamps. It gets on the tape, and then I can take the tape off and throw it in the trash. Leaves me very little cleanup on my clamps. Alright, final piece. Get some clamp pressure on this. I want to scoot this clamp over a little bit. There we go. Much better. Alright, now we would just want to go ahead and get our squeeze out cleaned off. Got a damp rag here. get as much of it off as I can. I have a very slight amount of misalignment down here. Not sure why that is. Alright, now we'll stand it up and get the back side cleaned off. Same thing, nice damp cloth, get that residue off. All right. Now we wait till tomorrow. The glue is dry and I've got these out of the clamps. It's actually been a couple of days. I had some stuff going on and I had to take care of it. So I want to, before I pull the paper off my table, I'm going to modify this template just slightly. I want to put feet on this serving tray, and it's hard to lay them out symmetrical once it's all done. So I'll show you how we're going to take care of that right now. I've traced this template out on my table right here, and I've made a small dot right here, and that's where I want the feet to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line the template up with my marks here, get it as close as I can anyway. If I'm off by just a little bit, it's not really going to matter that much. And I'm going to take a Sharpie and I'm going to mark the template right over the dot that I drew on the paper. Now we're going to spin it around and we're going to do the same thing over here. Get it all lined up. Looks pretty good. And get our dot on. At least this way I know that they're symmetrical and that it's going to work out the way I want it to. Now we'll flip the template over, set it back down. Get it where I'm happy with it. Mark it. There we go. And now we'll spin it around. And we've marked all four sides of the template with one dot. And there we go. I'm going to head over to the drill press, drill them out, and then it'll be good to go. I can use them as my guides to drill the pilot holes for the feet. Here we go. I have got these holes drilled. They're a little bit hard to see in the camera, but they're all four there. Very slight modification to the template. If I don't want to put feet on something, I don't have to, and if I do, I've got it all marked out exactly where I would want to put them. I'm going to run these through the planer and then we'll be back to get them cut out. Alright, now that we've got this all planed out, we need to trace the template on here and get this thing cut out. This walnut strip is exactly 1.5 inches wide, so I've marked it at 3/4 and drawn me a line down it complete. The template is 10 inches wide, so 5 inches to the center. Then using my carpenter square and setting it in here where it's all nice, I can measure over my 5 inches and my 5 inches, and that is going to give me the center of this template, and that will allow me to set it up on there exactly the way I want it, so that when we're all said and done, we are right down the middle with our strip of walnut. Now the film is still on here, so later, after I peel all this off, I will mark all these permanently with a scribe so that I know exactly where the center is. And not everything I make with these is going to be like this with the wood running right down the center. I may do some off to the side, then the center mark won't matter, but sometimes I will do it like this, so I do want the center marked. Now that we've got it all marked out, we can set it on there, get it all lined up real nice. I like that. And let's trace it out. And if you didn't know, Crafted Elements also has silicone molds, and they have templates to match a bunch of those silicone molds for doing epoxy work. And the reason for that is if you just want to use a partial piece of wood for this, per se, like down the middle and then the rest of it epoxy, or 2 pieces on the outside and the rest epoxy, you get the silicone mold, you trace your wood with the template, cut it, then it'll sit right in that mold, the perfect shape, and then you can pour your epoxy in. So they have a very good system figured out. Let's get this over to the scroll saw and cut it out. I'm going to drill 2 holes in here for these handles before we get over there. I'm going to turn the speed up just a little bit, I think. This is my second time using my scroll saw. It is a Harbor Freight saw, and so far it cuts it out faster than the jigsaw does, with a lot less headache, I know that. So I'm not going to cut right up to the line. I'm going to leave an 1/8 inch or a little bit more for the router table to get. Also, that's going to make sure that I can have enough meat in case my template gets taped on here just a little bit off from where I intend it to be. I'm also currently using the blade that came in the saw. It is not a high quality blade, I'm sure, but it seems to be holding up all right. Alright, we'll go ahead and cut this other side off. It's a new day. I had to make a trip to Rockler and get some new blades, and I actually know I have the correct blade for what I'm doing, so we should be good. Alright. Now I just have to cut out the handle holes and we'll be good to go. We are now ready to get the template on this serving tray and give it its final shape. This serving tray is, like I said in the beginning here, I want to put feet on it. And I've already got my holes pre-drilled in my template. So while my template is attached, after I'm finished in the router table, I will go ahead and pre-drill my pilot holes for those feet. So I want to look both sides over really good and determine what is going to be the top and what is going to be the bottom. And I didn't realize it before, but I have a little knot right here, and it's not perfect. It's got a little catch to it. I'm sure that it'll sand out and be better, but obviously I am going to make this the bottom. My center line is on the top, so using my combination square, I am going to get that transferred over to the other side so that I can make sure that my template is lined up nice and straight with the mark that I have on the template. So I'll get this line transferred over, then we'll get the template attached, and we'll get this thing in the router table. Before I glue the template on, I've got my drill bit that I'm going to use for my pilot holes for the feet slid through the template. I'm going to flag it before I put the template on. It's just a little easier this way. That way I know exactly how deep to drill them. I currently have it set at the depth of the screw, and if I did that I would almost go completely through my material. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the feet are going to hold it away about another 1/4 of an inch, so I'm just going to back it up to about right there. So that is about 3/4 the length of the screw. And then I'm going to go ahead and flag that drill bit right here. Just going to take a small piece of painter's tape and wrap it around that drill bit right where I want it to be. I can do it easy enough right here. Then we're just going to wrap it around this drill bit right here on this side. Just like that. So then I will know exactly where to stop. As soon as that starts removing any of the dust away, then I will be good to go. I'm going to be using Gorilla double-sided tape to hold the template down. This works extremely well, almost a little bit too good. I have wiped the dust off of my workpiece. So my tape will adhere well. Doesn't take that much. Could go with even smaller pieces than that if I wanted to. I believe I'm going to put 3 down each side. Alright, now we got to get this backing off of here, and it comes off pretty easy, but it also can be a little bit of a pain. Alright, so I'll peel off the rest of this backing, then we'll get that template on. So now, taking my time setting this on here very nice and neatly, making sure my lines are lined up before I let it down, and that I'm centered on the board like I want to be. Well, I'm really close on this side and a little extra meat on this side. No big deal. I've got wood to remove everywhere in the router table, so we are stuck. Alright, let's get this over to the router table. I have my start pin in my router table. This is very important. You need something solid to start against before you push your template in to, or your workpiece in. Once the bearing gets on the template, you're going to be good to go. Currently my bit is too high, so I need to adjust that down some. Alright, with our router bit set where we want it, we are ready to get started. We want to start with side grain first, not with in grain. With the outside finished, we are ready to get these handle holes cut out. Now we have no choice but to start with end grain here, so we're just going to come into this real nice and easy and cut this out of here. Alright, there we go. I'm going to get this other one cut out and then we'll come back and take a look. Now that we've got it off the router table, it's time to get this template off of here. I'm just going to use my painter's tool and slide right between the template and the board and then just give it a little lift up. These templates are pretty tough. They take this very well. And there we have it. Go ahead and clean this tape off and get it ready for next time. With the template off, we are ready to go ahead and get our roundovers on here and get these edges all taken care of. There is a couple spots I'm concerned with, one being this knotted area, which I'll probably just graze this real light, multiple passes, I think, to try and get that round over on. And then this side concerns me a little bit. I had a little peel out here on the router table, so I know that this is, I'm going against the grain when I do this, so I have to be careful when I go across there. This side seemed to be just fine. So what I want to do is get my bench cookies down, and that'll raise this up nice. I've got my roundover bit set where I want it, and we'll get roundovers on this. These are Rockler bench cookies, and what they're going to do is prevent the workpiece from sliding around whilst I'm using the router on it. Very nice way to raise your workpiece up off of your table so that you don't have to worry about your bearing or the end of your router bit or anything hitting the table, and it locks it into place very nicely. Now, like I say, I've barely got my bit down, so let's see what we get and go from there. I'm just going to touch it a little bit and see if I like the depth of it. And I do. I think for that tray, for this tray, that's not looking bad. I think I'm going to go just a little bit deeper than what that is. Not much though. All right. Just so you can see the extent of the round over I'm putting on it. It's not an aggressive round over by any means, so I think we should be good. I'm going to go ahead and go all the way around this. Got to be careful over here. Let's see how this goes. That's a little close. I'm gonna do the exact same thing on the other side, and then we will be ready for some sanding. I've got some 220 grit sandpaper here, and I want to sand my edges first and see if I can't remove. I got a couple little burn marks here. It's no real big deal. They typically sand right away. What doesn't, in my opinion, adds a little character to the edge grain. It certainly doesn't look like a burn when you get all your finish on. It just looks like a darker area of wood. So I'm just going to keep sanding these edges here for a little while till I get them where I want them. Then we'll sand the rest of it. I've finished sanding all the edges, and I have some 120 grit on my random orbit sander, and we are going to go ahead and get this both sides cut down with the 120. Now that we've got it all sanded with the 120, we are going to go with the 220. Do the same thing, sand both sides. I've got some painter's points sitting here that I'm going to set the board on, and now we're going to water pop this board. And if we don't, what we want to do is raise the grain, and then we resand it. And the reason for that is so that when the end user gets it wet for the first time, the grain doesn't raise and the board stays smooth. So I've just got some water in the spray bottle, and we just want to mist it down. And it kind of gives us a good idea of what the board is going to look like when it's finished. And we'll go ahead and get this misted down. Then we're going to let it dry overnight. And then tomorrow we'll be able to put a final sand on it. I'm going to put a little CA glue in this knot right here so that that's nice and smooth. It just has a little itty bitty indent in it, and I'll take care of it with some CA glue. I'll show you that. I've got this little knot right here all cleaned out. I used this little pick or awl to clean this out, and I got all of the the barky material out of it, and it's ready to go. Now, I did not have any Starbond is what we use to fill knots, so I ordered this little kit right here on Amazon. I'm going to put a link down in the description. It comes with some brown and some black. I think for our purpose we're going to use the brown. especially since the knot is a little bit darker right there. I think it'll look just fine. And it also comes with the activator. The nice thing is this only takes maybe 20 seconds to cure once you hit it with the activator, and then it's ready to sand. That's a little bit deep. Even though they call this thick, it is a little bit on the thinner side when you're installing it. So we will probably have to put a couple of applications on here, maybe 3, to get this all filled up and nice. Let's get going. And with the bottle of CA glue, they give you a bunch of these pinpoint tips, which is very nice, and they basically give you about everything you need. I haven't read through the complete instructions yet. We will not be using any of those today. We're just going to go ahead, and I've got the tip cut off, and we are just going to get us a little bit in here. See how it kind of sets? This is a wider gap, so we don't need that little pinpoint. And if I have to do 2 applications, that's okay. So it's sitting in there nice. I'm going to give it a little spray. It kind of ran down into this other piece right here. I'm going to give that a little spray. There we go. Now we'll just let that evaporate. And at this point, that glue is hard. It is basically ready to be sanded. As you can see, nothing comes off on my finger. So what we're going to do is just let that evaporate for a minute, because it's still a little low. And I'm going to put a second coat on there until it's filled up to the top. And yes, this is a little bit darker, but I think it'll wind up looking just fine. Alright, let's get another little coat on top of that. Hit it with a little activator. There we go. Now before I put any more, I'm going to sand it, but I want to make sure that I'm good here, and I still feel a little low spot, so I'm going to just kind of hold it up and take care of that. But we will come back in a few minutes when we're ready to get this sanded off. Got some 220 on my random orbit sander here, and we're going to go ahead and clean this up. And just that simple. That feels nice. And it's not a bad look either. We'll take a better look at it once we finish the board. Now we've got just a little bit of 220 to do right here to clean up this corner. I kind of want to try and focus just on that so that we're not taking away a bunch of wood that we don't want to. And then there's just a little bit right here. So that looks good to me. What I'm going to do is go ahead now and just finish sanding this entire board with the 220 and get it ready for its finish, including the edges, get all them nice and smoothed out, and then we will come back for some finish. I've put the final 220 sanding on the entire board, and we are ready for oil. And we're going to be using Howard cutting board oil to season this up. go ahead and put it on there a little bit generous and start rubbing it in. Probably if I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. One of my favorite parts here is seasoning the board and getting a good look at it. Even though this is going to be the bottom side, the other side doesn't look a lot different other than the fact that we've got that little bit of CA glue in here filling a knot. There we have it. This is going to get 3 coats of this oil. You can wait about an hour in between coats, or when it soaks it up. Like, some of this wood that I've been working with is so thirsty that by the time I get both sides coated, the other side is already basically pulled it all in. So I'll probably put 2 coats on it right now before I even leave the shop. So I'm going to go ahead and finish oiling this up, and we will come back when it is time to get the final step done here. I've let the board soak overnight, basically absorbing all the oil. It has pulled in every bit of it, so we are ready to get on with the next step. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use Howard's Butcher Board Conditioner, or Howard, it's not actually Howard's, and this has some mineral oil in it, but it also has some natural waxes, some beeswax. I'm not sure the other wax that's in here, but I think there's 2 different waxes. And what this is going to do is give the board its final protection. Now, we don't need to go as crazy with this as we do with the oil, because we want to get these boards to soak up as much oil as possible. So I've just got a small amount on here, and it's basically the same process. We're just going to rub it in, coat the entire board with it. It is going to soak in the oil just the same as before, and the wax is going to harden similar to that of waxing a car. And then once it's fully dry, then you can come back through and buff it off to a little bit of a luster. It's definitely not a gloss, but it does have a little bit of a luster to it once you buff them off. And I'm going to put 2 coats on here, so I'm going to get this one on. Probably in about an hour or so, it'll be ready for the next coat. And I will go ahead and get that one on. And we'll come back here in a little bit and get the feet on this. The conditioner has been on here for overnight. I wiped off the excess, and I am getting ready to put these feet on. I bought these feet from Amazon. It's 100 count in the box. I'll link it in the description in case you'd like to grab some. So let's get these feet on. You remember in the beginning of the video here when I laid out the template and got it all on here, we pre-drilled all these holes. So we are all set to just install these feet. And I do strongly suggest before you lay out your template or put it on, if you go ahead and pre-drill your template like I did for these pilot holes for the feet so that they're symmetrical on the bottom of this board, that you make sure you put your template on what you want to be the bottom of the board. There we have it. I'm going to put these other 3 feet on, and then we'll come back and take a look at the finished product. Alright guys, there we have it. This turned out to be a very nice board. I like the cherry on the outside. Cherry is the star of the show here, and I like this board a lot. Here it is with all 4 of the feet on there. It sits nice and flat, no weeble wobbles in it. That's where it takes the time when you got to get it on that planer and just make sure that this board is nice and flat. You don't want any of that stuff going on the board. And if it does happen, if you have a little twist on your board, you can always put a little something underneath one of these feet. You can tighten one foot a little more than the other one to try and get that out, or you can loosen one up a little bit and let them just, you know, not so loose that it's flopping around, but you can put different pressures on those feet if you do have a little bit of a off balance board or a little bit of twist in the board. You know, a 16th or something, you can get away with it. Alright guys, that's all we got for this time. If you enjoyed yourself, click on one of those two videos going to pop up below me. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider doing so. And remember to always respect the power of your power tools. We'll see you soon.